friends, and welcome to another WSIB Truth Matters with Joe Machado on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I hope you're doing well. So I've had a lot of requests to talk about the issue of the Final LOE review, or what the WSIB refers to as the 72-month lock-in review. It applies to claims after January 1st, 1998, when Bill 99 came into effect. It is quite an extensive policy, and there are a lot of factors to be considered. If you're going through the process now, or you've been through the process and you're not sure how things were left, if you're considering an appeal or you're in the process of an appeal, or if you're approaching the final LOE review, then I wanted to make sure that I didn't add more confusion to what there already is. So rather than do it in a 10, 15, 20-minute video and cram a lot of information into that, I thought it would be best to cover it over a period of, I'm thinking about 3 videos, maybe 4, but I don't want to rush it. I do want to be clear. I want to be able to give you information that's easy to understand, because a lot of the factors in the policy can be confusing. And trust me, even the WSIB gets it wrong. Because when I look at tribunal decisions on the matter, it's obvious that they get it wrong. And even though this section of the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act has been in effect since 1998, so we're coming on to almost 20 years, they're still getting it wrong. I just see a lot of the nonsense that they do, and the arbitrary review and decision making, and just doing shit that's just wrong, and causes more confusion. So anyway, there's a lot that I want to cover, but I'm going to keep it straightforward, concise, and explain it in a way that's easy to understand. And then once I go through the various elements of the policy, then I want to review some notable tribunal decisions where they've had to deal with some of these issues that the WSIB obviously creates. And then the Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal has to try and fix it. And fortunately, for the better part, they do get it right, and they're pretty thorough. So as I said before, the loss of earnings section of the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act came into effect in January of 1998 with Bill 99. And there was a massive transformation of the workers' compensation system in Ontario, and probably the largest transformation in the last 50 years. Which obviously has been very confusing in terms of how the WSIB adjudicates claims, decision making, and how they deal with the various structures of benefits resulting from Bill 99. The policy is 180306. And I'll put it up on the screen so you can review the policy if you're so inclined. And so all of the elements that I'm going to talk about over the next 3 days or so will be from that specific policy. So elements such as the final loss of earnings review, when and how the final loss of earnings review should be conducted, what's the procedure involved in the review process. And also very importantly is how exceptional cases are handled, because there are exceptional cases that don't necessarily or aren't necessarily straightforward, where the WSIB has had to create policy or sections of policies and procedures to accommodate that. And I'm talking predominantly about what happens after the 72-month lock-in review. What types of information the Workplace Safety Insurance Board can consider at the review, such as actual earnings information from suitable employment. So if you've been involved in or were involved in the labor market reentry program, and now it's called the work reintegration program. A suitable occupation would have been selected either by yourself or the WSIB selected it for you, and we'll get into the whole deeming aspect of those things as well, part of it. I do a video before on deeming or the matter of deeming. So actual earnings from a non-SO identified job. So what that means is if you were provided with labor market reentry services or work reintegration and there was a suitable occupation identified, but you didn't get employment in that suitable occupation, you found other employment, how the WSIB uses that and considers that in that final LOE review. How they deal with earnings and the outcome of the review, if it occurs before you were able to find a job, adjusting earnings to that of an experienced worker. So again, it has a lot to do with their deeming and how the WSIB has this power to forecast or pull shit out of the air that doesn't make any sense to anybody, but that's what they do. And what I mean by that is you're in a suitable occupation that was either identified by yourself or in conjunction with a vocational rehabilitation caseworker or return to work specialist. And you're not able to find employment or you're not working at the time of that final review, how the WSIB deals with that. But also how they use earnings of an experienced worker in that SO, even though you're not working in that SO. Again, just one of their abilities to project an alternate reality. The final review can be deferred. There are certain circumstances under which it can be deferred, and it does make sense. It's in favor of the worker if that, in some circumstances, if that actually happens. So I'm going to cover that as well. If you're cooperating in healthcare measures at the time of the 72-month review, so you're still in treatment, and your level of impairment may have not been entirely established yet. If you're cooperating in a work reintegration services at the time of the 72-month review, what's considered, what they look at. Benefits during the review. If the review is deferred, what happens to your benefits? What's the time allocated for the review? How long can they defer the review? If you have a significant deterioration past that lock-in review, so in other words, you've been through the 72-month lock-in review, you're receiving either a full loss of earnings benefit or a partial loss of earnings benefit, and there's been a deterioration to your condition, how that's handled, how it's handled if it's a temporary deterioration, or if there's a likelihood that there's a permanent deterioration, in which case an L redetermination would be required. And of course, that would then yield a different percentage, which may affect the overall partial LOE benefit. And that's why they would have the opportunity to review that again. If there's eligibility, but there was a 0 NEL rating at the time, so in other words, there's no permanent impairment recognized, but there are permanent restrictions. If you've been granted entitlement to a second area of injury, how that affects the review, that would also be a mechanism to do a review of the 72-month lock-in after that, the lock-in review, and an increase or decrease in your post-injury earnings. And also, I'm going to talk about the requirement to report material change in circumstances. And some of you are probably familiar with this, and you may have been sent some information in the past with respect to that. So it looks like it's a pretty long list of items to cover, and some of them are more straightforward than others. But over the course of the next 3 days or so, give or take, I'm going to do my best to ensure that you have a pretty good understanding of what may be required, what is required, your duty to cooperate, and when you basically can just say, you know what, screw this, I'm not going to do this, I'm appealing, and how the tribunal looks at a lot of these situations, so that you understand what you may be dealing with down the road in an appeal situation. All right, friends, so thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please continue to share my videos. I appreciate that. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, I invite you to become a subscriber. It's free. You get notified every time I come out with a new video. And if you have any specific questions about your case, by all means, send me an email at joemachado@WSIBsettlements.com, and I'll do my best to address any of your questions you may have. And as always, friends, take care now.